Okay, this video is the second video in the Introduction to Methods, Chapter 5. And so at this point you should have the Intro to Methods Java file open in JGrasp. It should be saved in your Chapter 5 folder. I have the word video because it just separates it for me from other files. And so make sure you have Intro to Methods open. You should also have your paper out where we started taking notes. Over here on the right you'll see these are the notes that we should have taken already from day 4 of last week. And so what I'd like you to do right now is I'd like you to write down these notes. Pause the video and write down all of these notes on your paper, and then come back to the video when you're done so we can then go on with the video. Okay, so you should have written down all of these on your notes, and then so we're going to show how this relates to our program over here that we did, of course with mostly pseudocode. But here's how this works. We're going to go through and I want to discuss landmarks with you today. In this chapter, because we are going from one place to another, and that another place is not always the next line down, what I've done is I want to give us a series of landmarks so that we know where to go. So I don't know if you use landmarks when you tell somebody, okay, our house, you go to the Circle K on the corner and turn right, or something like that. So you kind of have landmarks. And so our landmarks over here is the main method header, the method call, the method header, the closing brace of a method, and then the closing brace of the main method. All of these things are terms that you need to understand. It's critical. It's really not optional. You need to make sure you understand what these things mean, to be able to recognize them in code. And if you can do that, that's going to help you be able to trace your code. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go through and number the order in which these lines go. Like we already did that, but I'm going to do it a little bit differently this time. And show you how you can do it inside of a program, or in a Java file, or in a Google Doc, or in Pages. You could do it anywhere like that, because the main thing is that we're going to we need to be able to do a lot of tracing and do it well. It's going to help you. It's going to be a major part of the test as well. So let's go ahead and start with this. We'll go with our landmarks. So the first landmark is the main method header, and so we're going to abbreviate that, and so which is MMH, main method header. And so let's go to the main method header, which everybody should be able to find. In this case it's Mr. Faff header, but we're going to go do our our line comments, space, and then do 1, because that's always going to be the first line that the compiler really gets into action here. And so number 1, and then we're going to go MH. All right, and so we understand that to be this is where it automatically starts the program here. And so, and then where do we go? We go to the next line down. So now the idea here is these are going to, the first line below the landmark is going to say what the landmark does. And then the next line below that is going to say where you go next. So if you can, hopefully you can see that if you can learn this is going to make it really easy to trace code. All right, so then we go to here, and we're going to type this in. So this is step 2, and this is just a regular program statement, so nothing special here. And this is just going to be like reading a book. All right, you start at the top of the page, you work your way down one line at a time. Well, that's what we do in Java. That's what the compiler is going to do until it reaches a landmark. And so here we are, where the third line is going to be executed by the compiler. And then you have the fourth line going to be executed by the compiler. And then you have the fifth line. All right, so these are the first 5 lines executed by the compiler. So now we're going to give this one a name, because we should be able to recognize, here's the point, is when you see parentheses that should indicate a method, and so you have the name of the method and parentheses, you know that you have a method call. So we go MC. Okay, so what does line 15 do? And this is what you need to memorize. It calls a method. All right, so just the name of it tells you what it does. It calls a method. In other words that are used, it invokes a method, it executes a method, it implements, it starts the method, it gets it going. So when I used to call on Madeline to close the door, I think I did that. I would go Madeline. I would use her name and ask her to close the door, and then she goes from just sitting there to actually getting up and walking over the door and closing it. So I get her started by calling her name. Okay, so I call her to do a particular task or series of tasks. Now, in here, the method call, what it does, as we said, is it calls a method. And so what is the, where do you go from here? You go to the method header. So that's why you need to memorize this, so you know where to go from here. And here's the saying, basically, kind of using it with a specific situation here. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go, actually, how did I want to do this? You know, let's do it this way. Let's say this calls the Madeline method. All right, so that's what it does. It's calling the Madeline method. Now, when you get to a method call, what you should have in your mind to say, and even say it out loud. You're in your room or in the living room or wherever by yourself. You see a method call, go method call to method header, and you'll know where to go. So this calls the Madeline method, so that's where the next thing is going to take place. So we're going to go like this and go to the Madeline method header. And so here's Christina, so it's not that one. Here's Madeline, here it is. So it doesn't matter what order you place your methods, as we talked about last time. We could have had the Madeline method up at front, or all of them in the bottom. It doesn't really matter the order. The order is determined by when it's called by the main method. All right, so when I start class, I might have Halulu close the sliding glass door before I have Madeline close the classroom door. All right, but I don't change their position in the classroom to do that. It's just when I called them, that's what determines the order. And so here we are at number 6. And so this is, what is the landmark? It's a method header. Whoops. All right, and so our method headers are all of our method headers are gonna start with public static. And I don't know if I'm ever going to get into what that is. I mean, these are called access specifiers. What does that mean? I'm not sure if we're going to get into that or not, but that's what we're going to have. They're going to start with public static, just like the main method does. And for now, it's going to say void. Now later on, we're going to put a thing called a int double string. Because this is what's going to be called the return type, which makes no sense right now, so forget I said that. We will talk about that later. Right now there is no return, and so it's just void. And then here's the name of the method, and then you have your parentheses. All right, so right now the parentheses are empty. In the future, some of our method headers are going to have some code inside there, but right now they're empty. So this is the main, this is a method header. It's the Madeline method header. All right, and so, well, method header, what does it do? It declares the method, okay, just like kind of like declaring the variable. This is a variable, its name is blah, 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 its data type is blah, 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 and it reserves a memory location in the computer memory. I'm not sure exactly what happens in the computer memory with this, but it is something that is accessible by the compiler. So it's a declaration of the Madeline method. So there's a method that's declared in the computer memory. Its name is Madeline. All right, and so then the next thing is, well, what do you do after you go to the method header? What do you do? Well, you go to the first line of the method, just like we did with the main method header. So we're going to go down here and we're going to go to the first line. There could be multiple lines in here. And so that's 7, step 7. The next, now we come to a closing brace. You do not want to ignore these closing braces, and that's what gets some students into problems, is they neglect this. So what is this? This is end of method. Whoops. Now, I'm not really numbering this. Maybe I should. Maybe I should do that. I haven't done that before. Let's do it this way. Let's go ahead and call that 8. So that maybe that way you guys won't forget to see that closing brace. The closing brace is going to be the end of the method. Closing brace of the method is the end of method. It ends the method, obviously, and what is the secret here? You go to the method call. That's where you go. Well, we have a saying for that. And so this is end of method, return to method call. All right, so again, that's something else that you can say. All right, closing brace, end of method, return to method call. That's what you say out loud, and so till you got it memorized. So end of method, so right here, end of method, return to method call. So here's what we do then. We go to the method call. Well, what method call? There's 3 method calls in here. Hopefully you see the logic in that you would go to the call, the method call that called this method, the Madeline method. So we're going to go right back to here, and we're going to go, and I can't remember how I did this. I was going to do this, but this is number 9. Okay, so we're going to go here and go step 9. All right, now sometimes, as we said before, sometimes there'll be things to do on this line that has the method call. Right now there is nothing to do, so we just go here and then step off to the next line down. All right, and so now we're going to go 10, which is just a regular program statement, and then we're going to go to here, and we recognize this as a landmark, so method call, and we're going to put in here that this specifically calls the Christina method. And so what is the saying? When you see this, you go method call to method header. And so then we go to find the Christina method header. And so that one is up here. And so we're going to go in there, and I'm just going to copy from our previous one and go like this and call it number, well, sorry, this was 11. And this is 12. Now the next place the compiler goes is, of course, with the method header, you go to the first line of the method. And so we're right here. 13. Now we have an ending brace. We don't want to lose that closing brace, and this, of course, is end of method. So that's the end of the method. Well, where do you go after the end of a method? Well, you go to the method call. How do you remember that? You say end of method, return to method call. And so now we go down to, let's see, we didn't put a number here. Sorry, this is supposed to be 14. All right, and then, so the closing brace is that landmark. So we return to method call, which is going to be right here. So this is 15. All right, then we're down here. There's nothing to do on that line, so we're going to go here, and so this is 16. This is a method call. It calls the Hululu method. Method call to method header is the same, so we know to go to the Hululu method header. And so we go there, and this is going to be number 17. All right, and we go to the first line of the method and then continue on until we get to another landmark. So maybe there's 5 program statements. I don't know. Maybe 6 program statements inside this method. And then you're going to come to the last one, and the next thing you're going to see is a closing brace. And so that is the closing brace. That is the end of the method. And so the saying is end of method, return to method call. And so we go back to the method call for Hululu, and we go there and check it out. All right, so if I've made any mistakes on these numbers, just do it correctly and disregard my mistake. But I don't think I've made a mistake yet, but we'll see. So that's the 20th. So 20th step, and then there's nothing to do here, and then we go to the next line down. All right, so that is the 21st, and then we go to the next line down, and what do we see? We see an end of method. However, this is not any end of method. This is the closing brace of the main method. All right, so the main method went from here to here, and all the tasks, the main method when it started, it did these tasks. It did these things, it called this method, it did this, then it called this method, then it called this method, and then it did this, and now we're at the end of the main method. And so this right here is end, wait, let's go like this. So that's 22. So this is end of program, right? So that's the end of the class. In other words, the intro to methods class. All right, and so that is how it goes with numbering the order in which the compiler is going to execute the lines of code. So in the future then, when I ask you to number the order in which the lines of code are executed by the compiler, this is what I'm going to ask you to do. I'm basically going to ask you to do the line comment and the step or the order, and then if it's a landmark, it should have the landmark's abbreviation. So that's how this should go. Now when you do this, you don't have to have this part in there. I'm just looking for mainly the order number and then the abbreviation if it's a landmark. If it's not a landmark, then it's just the line comments and the order. And so this is something that's very important to memorize. You need to memorize these landmarks, be able to recognize them in code, and then know what that does and then where to go. And I would really encourage you to memorize these little sayings. Method call to method header, and then end of method, return to method call. Those are going to be very important as you go on. All right, so that's it for now.